Great. Let's see if we're working. Hopefully we've got the live coming through. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide, and welcome to another live video. It looks like we should be live and working. Hopefully, we'll see. It always takes a little bit. All right, let me see here. Yeah, I think we should be going live. Yep, looks like we are live. Well, hello, nice to see everybody there. Especially any new people. If this is the first video you've seen, this should be an interesting video. Hopefully it will help you see things clearly so you can get fluent faster. George, always early, nice to see you there. Hamam, nice to see you there. All right, so I just came back from a trip to Tokyo. I was there with a friend of mine and had a lot of fun. And while we were there, I was able to help him kind of learn a little bit of Japanese, and it was a lot of fun just to meet new people and yeah, just get out to the big city. And actually there were quite a few interesting language learning stories. One of them, I'll probably tell this like to subscribers as well. I can share it with you guys very quickly. But there was a couple, so I was at this bar with a friend of mine, and it was a couple from California, and the wife was Filipino and the husband was Armenian. And the wife so they were just in Japan now for their honeymoon, and the wife was saying she wanted to surprise her husband while they were actually on their wedding by saying some vows. So the wedding vows, these are like, I will do this and I will take care of you. So she said these things in Armenian, and so she studied this like in secret. She was just learning Armenian with a teacher for about 4 months without her husband knowing about it. And then on the day of the wedding, she was saying these things, and he was kind of crying about that. He was even like starting to cry a little bit in the bar when they were telling this story. But it's just amazing what can happen when you learn another language, and the way people treat you differently, or they expect certain things, or they relate to you differently because you can speak their language. And this is actually an interesting just phrase, expression in English when you're talking about, like, you're able to connect with someone, you say like, wow, now you're speaking my language. So even native speakers will say this to each other. Like some guy is like, hey, I'd like you to come help me do something. And the other guy says, all right, well, I need some money. Can you pay me to do that? And the first guy says, yeah, sure, we can pay you a lot of money to do that. And he says, ooh, now you're speaking my language. So you're talking about money. That's like a thing that I enjoy, or whatever, as an example. So another actually quick story from the trip. I was sitting in a taxi with my friend, and his dad was with us at the time. And so we got in, this was in Kyoto. So we went to Kyoto, Osaka, and Tokyo for a couple of days. And when I was in the taxi, I just started talking. I was talking with the taxi driver for like, I don't know, 25 minutes or something. Just like talking with him about the stock market and the price of the yen, or the value of the yen, and like a whole bunch of different things. It was really an interesting conversation. And when I got out of the taxi at the end and we paid, he gave us a discount because he liked me, because I could speak with him. And so that was like, it's kind of hard sometimes to think about what the value of fluency is, because it's not like a direct, like, I'm going to, pay you money or something like that. But often, like, I will get little discounts or bonuses or other things like that just for speaking the language. And so this is, again, another reason you really do become like a human in the eyes of other people. So when you're kind of here as a tourist or whatever, as soon as you flip into the language, so I did that as well. I like the last night we went out, I pretended like I didn't speak any Japanese. So we're just talking to people, and we were using this little pocket translator thing, which is pretty funny. But anyway, so today I do want to talk about practice. I'll check back comments. It looks like comments are actually displaying properly. Nice to see everyone there. I want to get right into this, so I won't go back and address everyone, but I do thank you all as usual. Nice to see everybody here. If you do have questions as I go through just talking about today's lesson, let me know, post them in the chat. I'll keep an eye on things and respond to them as best I can. John in a cave. Are you in a cave or from cave? Is that the name of a place? All right, so today we're going to talk about practice, and I wanted to talk about this specifically because I know a lot of people have really two problems. The first one is they don't have anybody to practice with. They don't speak with anybody. And the other thing is they're too shy to do it. So I'm going to kind of walk you through this process and help people understand how practice works, what practice is really supposed to do, and how you can get it by yourself. I've talked about this before, but I thought I would make a video just talking about practice specifically. So we begin with really two problems. So you have maybe like no one to speak with. So most people, they think they don't have a practice partner or whatever. They don't have enough opportunities to practice what they learn, and that's why they lack fluency. So these are kind of the reasons why they lack fluency. And the other one typically is too shy. I just call it too shy, but it's like too nervous or whatever. You're worried about making mistakes with pronunciation or grammar or vocabulary, whatever. But these are the things the reasons that people don't get enough practice, all right? But before we talk about getting practice, I want to talk about what practice is and what practice means. So the idea of practice, what people think practice is me kind of repeating things and trying to get into a conversation and speak with someone else, all right? So that's the basic idea of practice. But really the goal of practice, if we begin with the goal of practice is certainty. So just like anything else, people want to be good at what they do, and especially with language learning, you don't like making mistakes in front of other people. Some people can, it's okay, but most people do not, and so they would prefer to feel certain about the words they use. So if you feel certain, then you will speak. If you feel confident that you're going to speak correctly, then you will use, the words you feel that you would use correctly. But if you do not, if you worry about using the right grammar point or your pronunciation or something, it means you lack certainty. So you're feeling unsure, uncertain about the language. So the goal of practice is to develop certainty, okay? Does everybody get that so far? I want to make sure this is clear. When people talk about practice, like what are we really trying to do with this? I just want to make sure if people disagree with this or they think I'm incorrect or something, I'd like to know. So let me know if this makes sense. But the basic idea is that you want to practice the language. Practicing really just means you're developing certainty. And when you have certainty, then that's another way of saying you have speaking confidence, and the certainty develops as certainty, you feel more certain about the language, then that's when you develop fluency, all right? What is the best practice for spelling, says Hamam. This isn't quite related to what we're talking about, but if you're talking about learning to spell well, get Frederick. It's in the description. The link to that is in the description below this video. It will teach you how to spell and how to improve your pronunciation as well. But it goes through the same lessons, the same steps that native speakers get. So it starts you at the alphabet and then teaches you how to spell more difficult things like synthesis and apocalypse, that kind of thing. So if you'd like to learn how to spell, understand natives more easily, pronounce words more clearly, get the app. It's in the description below this video. All right, so everybody get this? Let me check chat right quick, make sure this is working. Let's see, got some, looks like a Korean. There's this, my first time for me to see this handsome teacher in a live real time. You guys are too kind. Well, thank you very much. If you know other people who enjoy handsome teachers, then send them my way. All right. Let's see, I didn't know it's a live stream. Yes, it's a live stream. Okay, but I think people are getting it. I haven't seen any comments to the contrary. That's another good expression, to the contrary. So like the opposite, so to the contrary. contrary. So contrary means the opposite. So I haven't seen any comments to the contrary. I haven't seen any comments that are saying the opposite of what I'm talking about, all right? So if the basic idea of practice, like we're trying to practice anything, we want to improve what we do, we really want to feel certain that we understand the language well so we can use the language well. That's the goal, all right? Now, how does this practice happen? So people are, again, we're coming back to this issue of no one to speak with, or you are too shy to speak. So how do you get the practice that you need to build fluency? Now remember, we're talking about certainty. Certainty is what you develop as you learn. So as you feel more confident about the language, as you hear something more and more, as you understand something better, then you feel confident about using it. So it's when you feel that you will say something correctly, that's when you feel confident speaking, okay? So what people usually think happens is you get into, you're in like a conversation, make this little mouth here. So you're speaking with someone, and people think like the speaking is how you develop fluency, kind of, that's what the practice is. But really what's happening, even in a conversation with other people, is, let's say this is you over here, and this is, we'll just say someone else. We'll put an S there for someone else. So you are saying something, and then the other person is talking, you're listening to them. The actual fluency, the actual understanding that improves is what the other person says to you. Isn't that interesting? Now the reason this happens is because if we imagine, let's say we just like erase this person over here. And you're just talking by yourself, you're either talking in your own head or you're talking out loud to say things. All you're really doing at this point is just repeating things. So if we remove the other person and it's just you talking by yourself, like me, like I'm talking right now, I'm not speaking with anybody else, I'm speaking to you, but no one is responding back to me. So as I do this, I'm not actually improving my understanding of anything, because I can't improve my understanding by talking, by repeating myself. So if I'm only saying the things I know, if I just repeat the word like eraser, and I just repeat that, eraser, 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 I might become a little bit better at saying that word. My pronunciation might improve a little bit. But the reality is that my pronunciation is not very good because I probably haven't had many examples, or I haven't understood what people are saying. So a perfect example of this is my friend who was out here. So he was, listening to some Japanese, and I'm trying to teach him a little bit. And I just said, pay attention to different situations and what people are saying. So instead of trying to translate something, just watch what people do. So if we go to a restaurant, what do people say? Like, how do we order food? That kind of thing. And so he's learning like thank you and other things. So he's still here. I left him to come back home, but he's still here, I think, for another day. But he's able to, like say thank you or whatever, use some basic things. And it's really just by understanding what other people are saying to him. So again, what most people think is practice, they think they have no one to speak with, or they're too shy so they don't get practice. But if we look at what practice really is, it's not you saying anything, it's not you saying anything to other people, because you saying something doesn't help you understand the language any better, okay? Again, if I just repeat the things that I already know, I'm not becoming kind of more confident about the language, I'm just repeating it. So I'm staying at the same level of understanding. But what happens when we're with the other person, we put the other person back in here as a funny looking person. So what's actually building your fluency is what the other person says to you. So especially if you have a native speaker to listen to, and you can understand what they're saying, they're giving you examples, and not just one person, but many people. So if we're gonna put a bunch of other people over here as examples. And I'm getting worse about drawing these faces. So as you get, it's the input that comes from these other people that helps you understand the language better. So as you get more examples of things, you hear something in different ways, you hear one person say a word and you hear another person who will pronounce it a little bit different. So each person says, even if we have a word like watch, so like a wristwatch or watching something. So each person will say that word a little bit differently. And as you hear that, now you're developing much stronger confidence. You feel more certain about the pronunciation, so you can then say it back. All right? So the thing I really want people to understand from this is that the practice is really all of these different examples that are coming from other people. So it's not really what you say to them that's helping you understand the language better. It's what they are saying to you. Does that make sense? Let me know if this is clear. So the things that you would say when you talk about like practicing using the language, you don't really become more fluent by just repeating things to yourself. It's as you understand the language better, those things that you feel confident about, those are the things that you will use, okay? So if you don't feel confident about what you want to say, then of course, you won't speak fluently or confidently, all right? Hopefully this makes sense. Now, the thing we can look at with this is that you don't need to be physically with a person in order to get this practice, okay? So right now, you are listening to me. You're not speaking with me. It's just like this. Like here's me, here is a screen, and this is you over here. And so we're not like having a conversation here, but I'm helping you develop your fluency by giving you more examples, by explaining things in different ways, and I'm even just one teacher, all right? So just one person. So you don't need to have a person here when people say, well, I have no one to speak with, so I can't practice. That's not true, because you don't need a person physically there. You don't need to be sitting next to someone in the same room as you in order to do that. You just need to get lots of examples. And so the same thing while I was out with my friend, we're going to different restaurants and listening to people order. Even you had like two different, we were at a sushi restaurant sitting at the counter and there were two different sushi chefs. And so I'm listening and like kind of pointing out, look, like they speak differently. You know, they might say the same word, but they're pronouncing it differently. So one person says like, irashai, and another is like, irashaimase. And this is both just saying welcome, but it's two different people saying the same thing. And I'm kind of showing this to my friend, like, look, they're both talking to the same thing. And he said, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, you know, what's going on? A customer is walking into the store the same way you would greet people in an American restaurant. Hello, welcome, you know, welcome to the restaurant. And so each of these people are saying something, and without me, like improving or whatever, I don't need to get just like one example. I need to get a bunch of them. And that's how I'm going to develop confidence in what I want to say. All right, let me go back and answer any questions, see if anybody had anything. All right, let's see here. Greetings from Murmansk, says Nelly. Let's see, morning Drew from Indonesia. What is the best practice? Oh, I got to answer that one. And this here said, good morning from Pakistan. It's good to be in your class. It's a pleasure to help you and be here with you. Lucas says, a fear of judgments. Yes. And so like when people talk about feeling too shy, that's what that is. So they feel judged because they know they're probably saying something wrong. You know, they're using the wrong word or they're, you know, pronouncing something incorrectly, whatever. And this was an interesting example with this pocket translator we were playing with. So this was, it's like a Japanese, like poketoku, and like, it just means like pocket talk. It's basically an app on a little device. And so you push a button and you speak into it and then it will translate things for you. But often it was not saying the correct thing. So it was kind of funny as like a party thing, but I wouldn't use that in like a business situation. That would be a trickier thing to do. Vincent says, speaking alone is not part of practicing to speak at length. That will make you be, let's see, speaking alone is not part of practicing to speak at length. That will make me to be confident. I don't quite get what you're saying. Speaking alone is not part of practicing to speak. I think Vincent, let me try to rephrase that, make sure I understand that correctly. But the point I'm trying to make here is that you speaking at all isn't really what helps you feel more confident. And the reason is because you don't actually become more confident about what you know by repeating the word again and again. So as an example, like I learned the word, I think I've shared this story before, but I learned the word head, atama, in Japanese many years ago. And I know it's like, oh, that means head. But I heard the word again used by my accountant, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and she used it when talking about the calendar, like the head of the month, like the like early part of the month. And I said, oh wow, look at that. You can use head, like atama, in that same way for like the top of a month, the beginning of a month. So we wouldn't say like the head of the month, but we would say, we do use that in other examples in English, like the head of a river or something like that. And so when you get more examples of things, that was one example of how we get different understandings, or we feel more confident that we understand about vocabulary. But it's the same thing with grammar or pronunciation, anything else. The point is to feel certain that you will say something correctly, and that's how you start speaking, okay? So if you're looking for someone to practice with, what you're really looking for is that person to say things to you that will help you understand the language better. But if you don't have someone to do that, it's not necessary. You don't have to be physically with a person to get this practice, to help you get that understanding. You just need lots of examples of people speaking real English that you can understand. That's the whole magic of being able to get fluent by yourself. So even if you don't have anyone to practice with, it's great if you do, but just remember, in this situation, when people talk about practicing, the real practice is coming from other people to you, okay? It's coming from other people to you. And it could be people that are physically with you, like you're sitting in the same room talking with someone, but maybe you've noticed that, even just watching my videos, I've seen other people, just people watching these videos, and they will notice something like, oh, look at that, like Drew said this, and that means this thing, and now I understand something new. And so you feel more confident because your understanding improved. You didn't practice saying anything, but you feel more confident that you'll say something correctly, and that's when you start speaking, okay? So the practice is not coming from you, it's coming from other people, all right? It's not coming from you, it's coming from other people. And even like the little bit that you speak, like there's like a small amount of that kind of improvement you can get just by saying things. But most of the improvement is just you not understanding the language well enough. And that's just not understanding individual words and phrases or grammar or pronunciation or anything else. So once you feel more confident about something, that's when you speak. Okay. All right, let's see here. We'll go back and see. It is what now I start getting some questions over here. Nice to see that. All right. By listening alone, I learned to speak as I am doing now with attending your class at the moment. Yes, so Nasir is getting it like, as you learn something more, as you understand it better, it's really just as you understand something better, that's how your fluency is actually developing. So you needing to repeat things isn't helping you understand anything any better, because repetition doesn't build fluency. It's just repeating stuff. So fluency develops as you understand the language better and as you're prepared for more varied examples of the language. So if I only hear one teacher, so even if I just repeat a word again and again, it's not really helping you understand it. But if I can tell you that word in different contexts, and if you can also hear it from different speakers, then you will really feel confident that you understand the word, and that's when you'll use it fluently, okay? So if you don't have this, don't feel bad. That's really the point of this video. So practicing is not about being physically with someone else. It's just getting the input from native speakers, okay? So you can get that however. It could come from a book, it could come from a newspaper, a comic strip, you could watch a video, you could listen to something, but as long as you get that input that helps you understand the language better, when you feel that aha moment, yes, I understood something, So I heard something from someone else said something in a similar situation, and now I feel more confident about that. So that's really how the fluency is developing. All right, Samuel says, hello, teacher, from Haiti. Nice to see you there. Kya says, good morning from Myanmar. All right, what about improve the accent? How can I improve it? So that's another thing. So using Frederick will also improve your accent, but in the same way that you will improve your vocabulary or your grammar or whatever, all of that will come from getting more examples of native speakers. So if you hear 10 different people say a word, then you will feel confident, okay, here is like where my pronunciation will be. So I don't speak Japanese exactly like anybody else. My pronunciation, my accent is unique to me, just like it's unique to each person. So you can hear, there might be some similarities, but in general, like a person in a family, they're going to speak like the other people in their family because those are all of the examples they're getting. That's why children speak like their parents. They're getting those examples so they sound like their parents. But if you move to a different place, you're going to sound different because you will sound like the other people around you. So you will start getting more examples of different kinds of speech, okay? So to develop a better accent, your pronunciation and accent improve the same way that you improve your grammar and your vocabulary, by getting lots of examples of other native speakers saying those things to you. So again, the whole idea here is that you don't need to be physically in the same room with people. You just need to get lots of examples because even if you're in a same room, you're not really developing fluency anymore just by repeating things. So there's a small amount of practice, sure, that you get like from repeating things, but most of the reason people don't speak is even if they have chances to speak with other people, they feel too shy. So they don't feel confident enough about the language or pronunciation, whatever their specific issue is, and that's why they don't speak. So even people who have this, like me, when I came to Japan, I was living in Japan for a year, and I still couldn't speak with anybody. So I had lots of opportunities. I met people every day, but I was too shy to speak. So that was me. I was in the too shy group. So some people, maybe they live on the top of a mountain in some small country and they have no native English speakers around them. Doesn't matter. You don't need to have this situation. You don't need to be physically with someone in the room in order to get fluent, okay? All right, let's hit some more questions up here. They look like they're coming in pretty quickly. Jose said the sound is low. It should be fine. It should be the same as usual. Ildar, what up, Drew? Nice to hear this morning. Let's get some English, indeed. All right, let's see. So I want to fluently English. So you would say, I want to speak fluently. I want to speak fluently, or I want to be fluent, or I want to get fluent, or become fluent. So you notice here I'm giving you this naturally varied review, different examples or different ways of saying something, all right? So often I will repeat myself but say things in a slightly different way to make it easier for you to understand things. Mohammed says, dear teacher, how someone who is a non-speaking country can achieve fluency level? This is it. So how do you get fluent if you don't have anyone to practice with? So if you have no one to speak with, how do you get fluent? It's just like this, just like right now. So I'm giving you one example, one native speaker who's explaining things pretty clearly. It's pretty easy to understand. I'm not giving a lot of complicated idioms or phrasal verbs or movie quotes, that kind of thing. And if there's anything you're unclear about, I can explain it. But the point is, we are not in the same space. We are not physically together. Even though this is a live video, I'm not listening to anybody talk with me. You guys are just watching the video. And because of this, you are developing fluency because I'm helping you understand the language better. And that's how you get fluent. So as you listen to me and listen to lots of other people, that's how you will develop fluency, okay? So it doesn't matter if you live in an English-speaking country or not. The point of practice is to understand the language well enough that you feel confident speaking, okay? So we want to get you like practice. If you imagine like, you know, you learn a new word here the first time you hear it. So this is like we start with 0. You've never heard the word before. You hear a new word. Oh, look, that's kind of, I didn't quite hear that. Maybe I didn't understand that very well. But if you hear it, you know, the second time, third time, you know, 10th time, 20th time over here, Now, you feel 100% certain that you understand the word. You understand how to say it, how the pronunciation is, or what you might use it, like how you might use it in a sentence, how it works grammatically. As you get more examples of a word, your fluency increases. Your fluency, it's really just saying that you feel more confident about using something. So we can talk about this as like your confidence. So your confidence increases because your certainty increases and your fluency is increasing at the same time. So we don't just like become fluent instantaneously unless you just understand something. But at the moment you understand something, that's where you really feel confident that you can speak. So of course you could speak. It's like my friend who was out in Tokyo with me. So he heard a word like, he was like, okay, how do you say please? And I said, onegai shimasu. And he's listening to that. He's just like trying to repeat, you know, like onegai, onegurger, you know, and like he couldn't say it. And that's, you know, it's, of course he can't say it because it's the first time he's hearing the word. All right, I'll write it up here in English for you. Onegai shimasu. Onegai shimasu. So this is like, you know, one way of saying please, all right? Like you're asking someone for a favor, all right? But I just told him, like, don't worry about trying to repeat that and say that perfectly. What you should do is be listening. Now you're paying attention for that word. So we say it's on, make sure that's fitting up there, on your radar. Now this is another great English expression to say something is on your radar if you know what radar is. So it's like this little circle thing here with a line that goes around it, and it's for tracking little boats out in the water, like beep, 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 beep. So when we say something is on your radar, it means now you're paying attention for it, you're listening for it. So before, he had already heard like onegai shimasu many times, and I had used that in front of him, but he wasn't paying attention for it. So when I talk about like the different levels of understanding, this is the exposure level over here. So he's just hearing something again and again and again, but he's not really paying attention for it. But now he's like, okay, like I keep hearing this word, onegai shimasu, what does that mean? And now he's at the awareness level over here. So he went from exposure, where it's just the word is coming into him again and again, and he's not really paying attention because he's not really trying to think about it like a teacher or a language learner or whatever. He's just, you know, there's lots of language hitting him because he's in a native environment. And so he's around Japanese people and lots of people are speaking to him. And so he begins with exposure, and now, okay, he's like, how do we do this? Let me think about this. Now he's at the awareness level. And after he hears it enough times, he feels confident now, okay, he can use it. He's got the ownership level of the vocabulary. He owns the word. He feels confident that he'll use it correctly, okay? So you don't get fluent by trying to like force yourself to speak when you don't really understand what you're saying. You can do that, but it's much more difficult. It's like, it's much more stressful for people, okay? So again, you don't need to be physically with a native speaker, you just need to get lots of examples. And just like you're watching this video now, that's one way of doing that. So what we do in Fluent for Life, this is how we give people lots of examples, lots of different native speakers and different accents from different countries, different speeds. So you're getting to listen to all these different people, and that's what develops your fluency. So as you feel more confident and certain about the language, that's when you start speaking. All right, let's answer some more questions over here. I'll try to get through those, try to get through these faster, make sure I'm doing this correctly here. All right, Joshua says, hello teacher, how can I be more fluent in English? Yes, follow this. Nice to hear from the Philippines. Drew, what role grammar plays in speaking and listening? Well, obviously grammar is the foundation of how everything connects together. And I'm always telling people it's important to learn grammar, obviously. But what I say that's different from most teachers is that how you learn grammar is important. So as an example, like what children are doing when they're learning their native language is they hear a word like onegai shimasu. And they see like in different with different people in similar situations, they still hear people using that, and they figure out, okay, like this sound, or this like onegai shimasu, that like series of sounds, it's what people say when you want someone to do something for you. So you're not thinking about the grammar. You don't really understand if this means, like, if this is a word, or if this is a verb or a noun or whatever. It's not clear to people. But as you get more examples of things, it's like, oh, look at that. You start noticing patterns about, like, look at that, like onegai shimasu, ikimasu, tabemasu, nemasu, mimasu. So it's like, oh, that's interesting. Like, we start learning some different verbs, and they end this way, and it's usually for a little bit more polite situation. And I don't want to give you a Japanese lesson, but this is the way people are thinking about language when they're learning. Okay, so the brain is naturally trying to process this information, and when you don't understand it, you can't use it. Okay, this should be very obvious. So it's not about like hearing something once and then trying to repeat that to other people. You want to hear it many, many times until you feel confident that you can use it yourself. So as you feel more certain about it, you're going through these levels of understanding. You go through exposure, where you're hearing something, but maybe you're not paying attention to it. Awareness, where you really do feel like you're, okay, I hear, oh, there's that word again. Now I'm listening for it. I can hear it, I'm paying attention for it. And when you hear it enough and you can use it as well, that's when you own that word. And you become fluent in individual words and phrases as you learn this way. Okay? All right. Let's see. Jose, turn up your volume. I think it should be all right over here. All right, let's see here if I got this. Let's see. Oh my goodness, there's like a lot of questions over here. All right, Rafael, say hello to Brazil. Nice to see you, Brazil. Armando says, what do you think about practicing with no native English speaking? Could it be good practice? Well, I wouldn't do that. Like, I would not try to improve my Japanese by speaking with non-native speakers, especially if they're not very good. I know many, people who can speak Japanese very well and they are not native. But again, I want to get as many correct examples of the real language as possible. That's why I want to learn with a native speaker, or someone who is, they don't have to be Japanese. Like I know people who were born, they've lived in Japan a long time, and they are not Japanese, but they speak Japanese perfectly. And so I just want to learn from correct examples. But the point is, you don't need to be physically with them. If I don't live in Japan, often I would be trying to practice my Japanese back in America when I was learning it. So after I started learning Japanese, I went back to the United States, and I met some Japanese people there. But a lot of the practice I got was just like reading stuff or watching videos online. That's basically how it worked. And so I can learn Japanese that way by getting lots of examples. So look at that. In this situation, people say this. Or there are a couple of other things they might say. But that's how I get fluent. So it's not about me trying to repeat things. It's just making sure I get lots of correct examples. But I would like to have actual people, even if I don't have them physically with me, I want those examples. Let's see. Fabio says, hey, teacher, the book, though. I don't know what that means. Let's see, I can't read that. What is the difference between proper and correct? It depends on the situation, but in general, if you want to do something correctly, like you do something properly, you can use them the same way. So I could speak correctly, or I could speak properly. Yeah, I guess in general, they mean the same thing. Maybe proper has a slightly more educated, it's a little bit more rarely used, I guess, in conversations. You will hear both of them, but often you will have like proper is like, it's kind of like correct and appropriate for some situation. There's a slight nuance there. Like I would say, I could say, what's the correct like outfit or attire to wear? But it would be better like what's proper. It's kind of like what's appropriate for the level, rather than just like correct. I'm not doing a good job explaining this, but again, this is one of those things where you don't think about the vocabulary itself, you look at the situations it's used in. So that's why I'm trying to give you some different examples of it. But in general, you could use correct when you're talking about proper, but sometimes they're not. Like I would not have like a math problem here. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. So if I'm looking for the answer to that, I wouldn't say like 2 is the proper answer. It's not like appropriate in that way. We wouldn't use it that way. We would say that's correct though. All right, so I guess you could, but you would rarely hear someone say, oh, what's the proper answer? All right, but proper, it's more like what's appropriate for the situation rather than just like correct versus incorrect kind of thing. But yeah, it's a better thing. And this, like the reason people have questions like this is because there's uncertainty somewhere. It's like, okay, I want to know what is the correct thing to say. What's the proper thing to say? And as you get more examples, you will develop that sense for what's correct. So rather than just getting an explanation about it, you really do need lots of examples of hearing people use words like correct and proper. And then you will get that sense for what's correct. All right, do you think someone can be fluent even if he ever, maybe that means never try to speak with a native. Yes, you don't need to speak with a native to develop fluency because fluency develops with understanding. That's the whole magic of developing fluency. So you don't need to be physically there with someone else, but you do need their examples. So you need examples of native speakers. That can come from me, it can come from other people, it can come from reading, listening to things as well. If you understand something and you feel more confident as you get more examples, that's how you develop fluency. So it doesn't matter if you have no one to speak with or you are too shy. The whole point is that you're just getting lots of different examples that help you feel more confident about the language. All right, Fabio says, hey teacher, the book Thornbird is easy to read. I don't know what book that is. Now, sir, again, I'm getting aha moments in your class. Thanks. Glad to hear it. Let's see, Galika says, oh, hello from Sri Lanka. All right, and again, sometimes we doubt that what we would say really be understood by the person who we speak with. Yes, there are lots of doubts, and that's another one of them, another uncertainty that people might have. So if I say something, I worry about other people understanding me. And that just means I'm worried about communicating correctly. And that's another thing about you. It's not about the other person. It's just about you. Will you say something? And this is an interesting thing about the language. It depends on their understanding of you. So if I walk into a restaurant and I pronounce Japanese badly, like I don't speak the language, then they will think I'm not a good speaker, for obvious reasons. I say konnichiwa, like a konnichiwa. If I say that in, konnichiwa, then they will think, oh, here's a kind of a foreigner that he's trying, but he probably doesn't know the language very well. But if I say like konnichiwa, then they know, okay, this person can probably speak. And what's interesting about that is their understanding of you, or like their understanding of me in that situation, that will determine what they can hear. So if I start saying something, like I could say the same words, and if they think I can't speak, they won't be able to hear what I say. And this is just an interesting psychology thing, but it's like I mentioned before about like the difference between exposure and awareness, where if they expect me to not know certain words, then they will not hear them. And this is just a human psychology thing about language learning. But this is why it's good to, even when you introduce yourself, the first thing you say to people, try to say it correctly. Try to say, communicate as best you can and have correct pronunciation. That's why it's important to people to do that, because if you communicate correctly from the beginning, you can make a mistake later and they will not really think about it so much, because natives do that all the time. But if you make a mistake right from the beginning, then people think, okay, this person doesn't speak well. That's just part of being human. All right, let's see. I need to answer these faster over here. All right, here we go. Hey teacher, the book Thorn. Well, I got that one already. Let's see, JJ, I feel better and more confident throughout listening and start being able to use a phrase what native speakers use at large, but I don't know what Andrew's thought. Well, yeah, I mean, the general idea is that if you feel more confident about using something, then you will say it. If you do not feel confident, then you will not say it. It's really that simple. And so the point is not to try to repeat something. That's not really practicing. So I know it seems like that. People think, well, I just need to be in a conversation with somebody else. But what's really happening in that conversation? How are you really improving? The improvement is actually coming from what they say to you. It's giving you more examples of how to pronounce something, how to say something, more correct examples of speech. And if that input from other people is really what gets you fluent, then you don't need to have them physically there with you. Isn't that cool? So as long as you get the examples, if you get lots of examples of correct speech that you can understand, where you feel, now I understand something, that's when you start speaking, okay? So you don't have to repeat things and start speaking before you feel confident. You should feel confident first because you understand something better. All right, Just a Dude says, I can pronounce individual words easily, but when it comes to speaking long sentences, I can't do it very well in terms of my intonation and pronunciation. Yeah, so often this will come depending on how you learn. Typically, people are learning just individual words and they're not learning how to pronounce things and blend their words together. And often that's because they don't get many examples of how natives really speak. So the native spoken language is different from usually how people are learning English in the classroom. So you need to get lots of examples of that. So that's what we do in Fluent for Life. Even Frederick will give you examples of how words are blended together. So you can click on the links in the description for both of those. Duran says, what should I use, a pretty and quite? Well, it depends. You know, again, like when you ask me like, what does this word mean or which is better? It's like better for what situation? So like this is like, there are times where you could, it's like a Venn diagram. So if we begin, let's say we have something like that, like pretty and quite. There will be some times where they mean different things, and there will be other times where you can use them interchangeably. So you can use them with the same meaning. So like, ooh, this is it's a pretty difficult class, a pretty difficult class. So I'm talking about the degree of something, it's pretty difficult. Or I could say it's quite difficult. In that case, we mean basically the same thing. And often my intonation makes it different. Like I could say, yeah, it's pretty difficult. It means it's pretty difficult. Wow, it's quite difficult. You know, it's like, yeah, it's quite difficult. Yeah, it's quite difficult. So my pronunciation, my intonation has a more important role in what I'm trying to express than just the words by themselves. And this is why I'm always telling learners, we don't really want to begin with the vocabulary, we want to begin with the situation. So what are you talking about? I want to say, wow, that's a really difficult class. So a friend of mine says, hey, I just started taking this, I don't know, chemistry class or some difficult class in school. And I say, wow, that's really difficult. Wow, that's quite challenging. Wow, that's a pretty difficult class. So in that case, you can hear me using all of those words. I could say all of them and they have generally the same meaning, depending on my pronunciation. But I can also talk about like pretty, like that's a pretty girl over there. I'm just talking about her like physical attractiveness or whatever. But in that case, like it's not the same meaning. So we have to remember that we begin with the situation and then look at the different ways we might express ourselves in that. So there are lots of different ways to do that. It just depends on the situation. All right. Raga says, the more we have around us who speak different English, like Australian, British, we tend to have mixed English. Will that be okay? Well, I mean, you would generally have like the broader culture, and you would have a majority of some kind of speaker probably, unless you're like working in some kind of international, I don't know, like international, I don't know, like a military base or, you know, something like that where you have like one of each kind of speaker from a different country, you know, some situation like that. It would be pretty rare. It does happen. But in that case, usually people will find a way to communicate kind of in an international way. So even Americans and Australians and Brits, we will sometimes use different vocabulary, but we will find a way to communicate, or we will teach each other what things mean. So like my friend from New Zealand, he says like, oh, that's like a pretty flash watch. Like it's a pretty flash watch. So I would just say, oh, that's a cool watch. So I understand what he means, even if I wouldn't use that same expression in English, like American English, but I understand what he means. But in general, there would usually be some kind of dominant culture, like the most important or the most popular or the most numerous for that situation. So if you're living in a town and you've got, like if I live in Chicago, there will be speakers from all over the place there. But I mean, the American, like Chicago English will be the dominant language. All right, Moise says, how can do, so we can just say, how can you, or improve my English speaking, improve my vocabulary and grammar. This is it. You just get lots of examples of native English speakers showing you things. That's it. That's really what you do. So the nice thing is, like, you don't need to be speaking to get fluent. I know this sounds weird, but the point is, if you don't understand something, you won't speak anyway. So most people are still in this basic situation of either I have no one to speak with or I'm too shy. That's almost everybody who's learning the language and still can't speak. So either you are fluent or you are not fluent. And usually the reason is, like, people think, well, I don't get enough practice. So I don't get enough practice because there's no one to speak with, or I'm too shy. So there are people to speak with. Maybe I work in a place or my school or whatever, but I'm just too shy, so I don't speak. All right? And so what you see here is, like, what they're really missing is practice. It's true that people are missing practice, but what people don't understand is that practice actually comes from just getting examples from other people. That's what practice means. It doesn't mean you repeating things, because you're not really improving anything. It's like maybe a tiny amount of improvement you get, but it's not really much compared to all of the improvement you get from hearing all these examples from other people. And you could even just hear one example and understand a word well, and you feel it, okay, I got it, I understand what that means. But that's how fluency develops. So you could very quickly go from 0 to fluent in a word just by understanding it well. So someone says something, it's like, ouch. Like, oh, okay, I got it. Like, I understood, like, they say ouch when they get hurt. It's pretty clear what that means, and especially if I hear that from many people. So if I watch, like, a bunch of people get hurt, and they say, like, ouch, you know, something happened to me. You know, they recognize that. Now, why is... That's weird. Saying my battery was not working on the phone, but now it is. Okay, that's weird. All right, but hopefully that should make sense. So you don't need to be with people physically to improve. You just need their... It's like the movie The Little Mermaid. This will be kind of a bad example, but so in the movie, I haven't seen the new one, but the Disney cartoon, Ariel, she's the Little Mermaid. She has this voice, and the sea witch, the octopus lady, she takes Ariel's voice from her, and so she's got the voice with her. And Ariel doesn't have the voice, so she can't speak anymore. But the voice is like the thing, and so Ariel can't speak, but now the sea witch can, like, use her voice. And the point is, like, it's just about, like, if you can get the voice from other people, if you can get examples, and not just listening, but watching people or reading things, and all those different examples are going to help you get fluent. But the point is, you don't need to be physically with someone in order to get that. All right. Elder says, when I hear an idiom from native speaker, it makes me cracking smile if I know it well. Yes, and so again, you get that, there's like a trigger that happens. It's like, I know that word, I remember that. And especially, like, if you're prepared for something, you hear it in a conversation, you will feel very confident about that. Like, I got it, I was prepared, I knew the pattern, I recognized that, and then that's, again, it's something that will make you feel even more confident about using it, even if you don't speak. So you will recognize something. When you recognize that, that's, again, like, we're moving from exposure to awareness, and then when you really feel confident, you will own the language and you will speak. Joshua again, okay, now I get it. In order for me to be fluent in English, I just have to be better at constructing a phrase or knowing deeply the English language. Yes, and so the idea is that you become fluent in individual words and phrases as you understand them. So you don't really get fluent in the language. You understand pieces of it well, and some of them maybe you don't understand well, and others you don't know at all. So that's the same thing even for me as a native speaker. I know, I don't know, what, like small 5%, not even 2% of the language maybe. There are lots of words and phrases I don't know. So I might hear new things all the time, and usually what happens is I might hear something and not know I'm hearing it, but I will hear examples of things. I'm getting exposed to the language. And then maybe, okay, now I'm listening for it, I know the word, and then after I feel confident that I understand it, that's when I speak. So I don't begin by speaking, I begin by understanding. I'm going through this process of understanding the language better, and then I speak, okay? Now, of course, you can try to hear something and then just start speaking, but why would you do that? And for most people, they are stuck. That's where they just describe that as being too shy, all right? Or I'm too nervous. I'm worried about making mistakes, and there are lots of worries. I'm worried about other people misunderstanding me, or maybe I can't understand them, or whatever. So there are lots of worries that people have that stop them from speaking. But the thing that solves those worries is just getting lots of examples from native speakers, and that's it. And as you develop fluency in each word and phrase, you will feel more confident about the language generally. So like with me learning Japanese, at the beginning, I was just getting fluent in pieces of the language. But now I feel kind of more fluent in general in the language, but it's just because I've filled in more pieces of the puzzle. There's still a lot I don't know, all right? But I know how to get fluent, that's the point. And so if I know how to get fluent, then it's much easier to answer those questions. All right, let's see here. Goodness, all right, let's see. Okay, I got that. And then Joshua again, is it not the amount of time you spend in learning English? It is just the accuracy of how you understand. Yeah, so I gave this example before. I'll give this again because it's such an important example of how fluency develops. So people will ask a question like, how long does it take to get fluent? All right, so we've already seen that you get fluent in individual words and phrases. So you don't get fluent in the whole language, you get fluent in pieces of it as you understand it better. So the first time you hear something, you probably don't feel confident about using it. But if you heard something 100 times from different people, all about the same situation, you would probably feel pretty confident about what you're learning. And then you would use it, all right? But just as an example, so this is an example from my life for learning Japanese. This was like, I don't know, let's just say, so this is today, and this is 4 years ago. So 4 years ago, my daughters, well actually my older daughter then, she had this little like card that she would bring to kindergarten called a shuseki card, shuseki. So this is a Japanese word, shuseki. And I heard that, it was like, it was over here. Like I had been exposed to it, but I wasn't really thinking about it. You know, it's just like, okay, I've heard it, but I don't really know what it means. So I didn't feel confident about using it. I just didn't recognize it. But this is the first time I heard it, and I heard it kind of many times, but it's really just the repetition in the same situation. So if you hear someone repeat something again and again, it doesn't really help you understand anything more. So like a teacher can just say like, shuseki, 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 and it's like, it doesn't mean anything to you. You need more examples to help you understand something. And then, like 3 years later, I got an example of shuseki in, I don't know, it was just, I was like reading I don't know, like a business book or something. And it was talking about shuseki, like attending a meeting. And then suddenly I had that aha moment, like my brain just clicked. It's like, okay, shuseki means attend. And so she had an attendance card, and you can use shuseki in that way, so the Japanese word for that. But I didn't get a translation of it. I just understood the meaning from the context. And so when people talk about you need time to develop fluency, What you actually need are the examples themselves. It's not the amount of time. If I had this example and then right after that I got this one, like we just compressed this, you can get fluent much faster by just how quickly you can understand something. So that's the value of a good teacher, is how quickly can that teacher help you understand. All right? Now, why are people, I don't know how the volume can be different for different people. This doesn't make any sense, because it's the same volume it always is. It might just be when I'm speaking into the mic or when I'm like looking a different way, but just turn your volume up, should be fine. All right, so hopefully this makes sense. It's not about how long you spend. It's not like, okay, I need to repeat something for 10 minutes. No, you need to get enough examples that help you really understand something. And so if you spend time, if you focus on something, you can get fluent in it very quickly. All right, it's like that. It's instantaneous almost. So instead of 3 years, I could have done that in 5 minutes just by getting those varied examples. That's why naturally varied review is so important. You don't want to just repeat something. You want to get varied examples of that thing. You want to hear it from different people in different contexts, different speeds, different tenses, and all of that will get you fluent. So don't worry about spending a lot of time. You want to just get as many examples as you can. You need enough examples to help you understand something. All right, here, let's see, next one. Tip to choose or use either to the contrary or on the contrary, or can I just go with both in any cases? No, and again, you would listen, like I would put both of those phrases into Google, like on the contrary, like they mean the same thing, but you will see them used differently in sentences. So just type in like on the contrary example, and it will usually give you something like a phrase like we did this, but on the contrary, this other thing. All right, but when I was using it earlier, it's just in one sentence, like I did, like nobody is saying anything to the contrary. All right, so but rather than, again, you should get lots of different examples of that, but then you will understand exactly how it works. So find a bunch of examples and just look at those, and you will see, okay, now I got the pattern. Hashim says, hello, teacher. Masha says, good evening. How can I memorize irregular verbs? Well, for the few irregular verbs there are, you can just get lots of examples of them. The same way we do this in Fluent for Life. So we want to give you lots of examples, and then it becomes a lot easier to remember those things. All right, Genshem, today you have a more formal shirt. First time in your live stream, I saw you first time in this formal shirt. You were looking handsome in this shirt. Okay. Okay, yes, actually I have one of my usual t-shirts on under this. I didn't take this off. It's just a flannel shirt. You guys are too kind. Hashim, teacher, I know so many words, but I can't speak fluently. What is the issue, do you think? This is the issue. This is the issue right here. If you know a lot of words, you have awareness of them, but you don't have the ownership level, it just means you didn't get enough examples to feel confident about that. So if you know something, like your confidence increases as you know something better, okay? And so your confidence and your fluency are improving at the same time as you get more examples of something. As you really understand something, that's when you feel confident enough to use that thing. So if you know a lot of vocabulary, but you don't speak, you just need to get more examples to help you really understand something. So this is why often like you will hear vocabulary and you can understand what other people are saying, but you yourself do not feel comfortable because you just don't feel confident that you know the vocabulary well enough. So it could be pronunciation, grammar, whatever that thing is, but this is, again, this is where people usually get stuck. So I made another video about this, about the 3 levels of understanding and how fluency develops. But again, you have exposure to the language, even if you don't know it. You're listening to things, you might hear something on the radio or your brain sees some words written on something. Our minds are taking in information all the time, but we're often not consciously aware of it. But as you go through the different stages from exposure to awareness to ownership, that's where you really start feeling fluent. So the fluency and speaking confidence develop as you get practice, okay? So the practice we're talking about here, the practice is really more examples that come into you. It's going into your brain. If you hear 10 different people say something, then, okay, now I feel very confident, I understand something, and that's how you get fluent, all right? You don't get fluent by just repeating things to yourself or to other people. I know this sounds weird, but if you think about it, it's like, yeah, like, how would I really get fluent by just repeating something to myself or other people? It doesn't help me understand anything more, it's just repeating something. And the same way, if I keep getting the same thing over and over from one person, like a teacher in a classroom or whatever, that's why in Fluent for Life, I'm not the only person saying things. So I want to give you examples of lots of different people because you need examples of lots of different people to feel very confident about the language. That's how it works. All right. Let's see. All right, I think I got that one. Oh wow, there's like a bunch of, must have been some ones I missed over here. All right. Bridget says, good day, great teaching from the UK, nice to see you there. Alejandro, yo, Drew, what up, bro? Greetings from Mexico, nice to see you there. Joel, so speaking a long time, nothing comes out, say something. I don't understand let me know what you mean by that. If you're talking about yourself or you complaining about me, I don't know. Let me know. Thank you for the answer about proper and correct. You are the best. Yes, and remember, like, I will say something and you will still hear other people. Sometimes people will use a word and you're like, oh, I didn't expect that person to use that. Or native speakers will use incorrect grammar. You're constantly refining your understanding of the language as you understand more nuances of like, ooh, look, like that person said this thing in this situation, but they didn't say that same thing in this other situation. So your brain is trying to figure out this puzzle all the time. And it's just much easier to do it with someone who knows the language and knows how to teach properly rather than just looking for random examples of things. Rocky says, you don't seem to have, so here you would say you don't seem to have a Fukuoka dialect. Well, I live in Nagasaki, but I don't really use Nagasaki Ben that much. I'll just like, people will say like, oh, do you understand Nagasaki Ben? And I'm just like, oh, まあ難しいからたまにわからんけんさね。I'll just like say something, they're like, oh, can you say that in Japanese? Like Nagasaki Ben, and I will use that like, ikamba yo, ikamba ken sa. But yeah, I just do that to be funny around here. I don't really speak Nagasaki Ben normally though. Sandra says, hello Drew, looks like the Brazilian flag there. What is the best way to use and study that new word I just read or heard? Get more examples of it, that's it. So let's say you hear a new word, that you're in a conversation, boom, like here's some new word you heard, you know, write that down, remember it, put it in your phone or something, and then get more examples of it. Even if you just Google examples just to get some more text examples in different sentences or whatever, get more examples of that. And the more you hear and see and listen to and even try to read or write those different examples, that will get you fluent automatically. Lean, let's see, greetings from the Philippines. Hello, Drew. I declare good health for you. Hi to your family. Well, thank you very much. I agree with you. Fluency comes really understanding something and speaking from experience. Yeah. And so it's very simple. If you don't feel confident, you won't speak. And so when I try to explain to people, like, they're trying to begin with the speaking because they think they need to speak. They think they need to get practice. But they don't understand what's really happening when you get practice. And practice is really the input you get from other people. It's not what you say. So you don't need to have people around you physically to get that practice. You just need to get examples from lots of other people around you. All right. Okay, I got that. Mohammed says, my listening still sucks. How can I improve it? It's really hard for me to get what a native speaker is talking about unless I look at the subtitles, and we don't have subtitles in real life. Indeed. Yes, it can be hard to get examples, and that's why, again, you want to get naturally varied review. You want to get more examples from other native speakers who are saying the same thing or talking about that same thing. So one example, I made a video about making espresso in English, and you hear like four different people talking about that. And so some things will be the same vocabulary or pronunciation or whatever, and some of them are not. But as you get more examples, this is why it's so important to pick something and focus on it. See, what most people do is they will just get to the awareness level and they think like, well, I know this. Now I want to study something new. But if you're not up here at the ownership level, then stay on that thing. You should continue to learn more about something until you feel confident using it. Now, you don't have to do this with every word. Like some people just, maybe you hear a word and nobody uses that, that's fine. But for everyday things, if you use something and you don't feel confident, or you hear it a lot from people and you want to understand it, then spend some more time with that word. And it works the same thing. This one thing will solve every issue that people have with vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, listening, everything else. So it's just getting lots of examples, and that's how you develop fluency in that way. So don't worry about like trying to learn as much as possible. You want to be fluent in vocabulary, and as you do that, it will naturally make you more fluent in other things as well, and the process gets much faster as you do it. All right, Claudia says, hi, it's a great pleasure to see you and listen to your class. It's my pleasure. Let's see, Lou from China, nice to see you there. Why I don't understand natives when they speak quickly. Well, again, the way I'm speaking in this video is different from what natives are usually talking about, and often the vocabulary is different, the speed is different, pronunciation is different. So what we do, like in Fluent for Life, or the same thing if you want to try to do it by yourself, is get lots of examples of how natives are talking about something. That's how you get fluent. And that's how you understand people better. So if I want to, whatever your situation is, maybe you're learning English for your job or everyday life or something. If I go to the grocery store, like I could go to the grocery store and just walk around and listen to people, like what are the kinds of questions people ask the staff. So I learn languages in a completely different way now than I used to. So before, I would try to take something from English and translate it into the language I'm learning. But now I just connect the vocabulary, and that's the vocabulary is the pronunciation, and the vocabulary, like the grammar and everything is all one thing. And then I'm just connecting that with the situation. So in this situation, what do people say? When a person walks into a Japanese restaurant or a store or something like that, what do you hear? It's like, irashaimase. That's like a very common thing. Oh, irashai, irashai. It's like, okay, like I hear that same kind of thing. So it must mean welcome of some kind. And as I'm getting more examples of it, then I have a more finely tuned, a more nuanced, a more refined way of understanding that. And so I feel more confident about using it. I can see why like one person would like say it differently than another place, or there might be like a local thing, like in Kyoto, it's like okini, like for thank you or whatever. Like people will say different things in different places, just like in the United States. We have like some soda or pop or a soft drink or a Coke or whatever people would call it, but it will be different even for that same thing. And so you pay attention to what people are doing in that same situation. So what did different people say in that same situation? And that will help you understand it. Let's see. I think I got that one. All right, I got that. I don't understand it too. So yes, you would say, I don't understand either. I don't understand either. And so as you hear, like if you can understand what I'm saying right now, you just need more examples of like the kind of speech I have, but you also need natives talking about that same thing. So this is what we do in Fluent for Life. It's like, it's getting you from where you are to where you want to be. So understanding natives better, speaking fluently, all of those things, because you get lots of examples. That's what we do. All right, Joshua says, thank you for answering my questions. No problem. Computer engineer style, I see. And Joel says, when I describe something, nothing comes out after telling something. What's your opinion? Like you're asking what my opinion is of that. When I describe something, nothing comes out after telling something. You mean like you can describe something, but then you can't say anything after that? I don't know exactly what you mean. Tell me more. Are not you native speaker teacher? Yes, I am a native speaker. Born and raised in the United States. Tony says, it's me. Nice to see you there. And we got Moo saying, during conversation with native English speakers, I can mostly understand them, but I cannot speak very fluently. Then they speak more simply. How can I ask them to speak naturally? Well, and this is a tricky thing, that's a good question, but this is a tricky thing about human psychology and language learning. People want to communicate well, and they will kind of go to the lowest level or the easiest level for everybody to communicate well. So if you're like, if they think you are not a good speaker, then they will lower their ability. And this is another reason why, like, you don't need to, it's often a good idea not to speak directly with natives, because they will change the way they speak around you. So if you're in a real conversation with someone and they think that you can't communicate well, or that you're not understanding them, then they will, we call this dumbing down. So to dumb down is a good phrasal verb for people, to dumb down. It's just a way of saying simplify. So they will simplify their language, like dumb it down for you to make sure you can understand what they're talking about. So what I do, again, it's more like, and I've talked about this for years, but like being a spy. So I go and I just listen to other people, natives, having conversations about all kinds of things. I will just sit in a cafe, pretend like I'm reading a book, but I'm just listening to other people speaking. And I'm not really spying on them. I don't really care what's going on, but it's more like, oh, that's interesting. Like, this person said that. I might like look up a word or whatever, but in general, like, I can learn the language that way. And so when you're in a conversation with people, it's actually easier to learn. You will improve a lot more with just seeing other people talking. So this is, again, why we do this in Fluent for Life. Like, everything about Fluent for Life is designed around this, about how humans learn language. So you need to get lots of examples of people really speaking, and often you can't, even in a conversation, you can't get those examples from people because they're trying to speak more, I don't know, like in a kind of dumbed down way, all right? So again, like, you don't need to be physically getting those things from other people, but if you can, even just like from watching people on TV or something, that will show you real examples of how people are speaking. All right. So if you're not getting, if you feel like people are making their language simpler for you, then you should try to get them speaking to each other and listen to that instead. But as you feel more confident, then they will improve their speech as well. That's how that works. Okay, I got that one, all right. Rose says, yes, he is. I don't know what that's referring to. Hello, my friend. It's been a long time, says Jose. Nice to see you there. All right, and again, the Korean there. Let me know what your name is if you want me to say your name. Comparing the volume we normally get from your live video, now the volume is quite low, but we are all good. That's really weird, because I don't change the gain on the microphone at all. But I notice, like, the way I am, let's see. Yeah, I should be the same setting as always. You believe me, I have a microphone. I showed it on the last live video. When will teacher live time? What's the teacher's live time? Yeah, I don't have specific times for live videos. Often I will do them like Thursday morning Japan time, or maybe Monday, but it just depends. I don't have a schedule for these. But the important thing is you do not need to be live with me, just like this. Like what I'm explaining today, you don't need to have a live teacher with you in the video or whatever. You just need to see examples of people speaking. So if you're watching this now, or you're watching this in a few days when it's not live anymore, you still get the same benefit from the video. Yeah, all right, I got that one. All right, movement again. I mean, how can I ask them to speak naturally? Yes, I understood your point, like about asking them to speak naturally, but typically, when you ask them to do that, they will not do that. So if you say, "Oh, please speak naturally," they're trying to tailor their English to your level. And so, I mean, you can just say like as a learner, like you can like feel free to speak naturally. You can say feel free to speak naturally, or you can just that'd be an easy way to do it. I don't know, like they might feel conscious about that because they want to make sure you understand what they say. So you can ask them, just say, hey, even if I don't understand everything, please talk normally. Like imagine I'm a native speaker and speak to me, you know. But it's much easier if you just get those examples from actual native speakers who don't know you're listening to them. Just a dude says your voice and the microphone are totally fine. I can hear everything clearly. All right, glad to hear. All right, you just told them don't speak simple words. Yes, you could say that as well. But also it's not like the difference between native communication and what people get in a regular English class is very different. It's like the language itself, the physical words, you know, or the, not physical, but the actual words people are using, the pronunciation, the speed of the language is different as well. Armando says, according to you, is it a good idea to use ChatGPT for learning English? If yes, what could a proper way to use this tool be that we have nowadays? It's been very powerful. Yeah, so I would just use ChatGPT to get more examples of stuff. So like I would tell ChatGPT, give me 10 sentences or give me 100 sentences or whatever with this grammar construction. I mean, I would only worry about it saying something incorrect. It's just as easy to go to Google and just like type in a phrase, like I use, what was the word we had before? Like to the contrary. So if I put whatever I'm looking for in quotes, like I just like cat runs, just as an example. So I can search for this. I put like the quote marks and this and just type that into Google and it will give me a bunch of examples of sentences where people are using that. And I can just look at them right in Google. So that's probably correct English that a human made rather than ChatGPT. So you could use ChatGPT for the same thing and just ask it to give you a bunch of examples, like give me some varied examples of this grammar point. And so that's one way to get it. And then of course, like Youglish is another one, Youglish. So if you already know the particular word or phrase or something you're looking for, then you can go there and hear different examples of it from different speakers. But those are good things when you already know the vocabulary you're looking for. So if you don't know the vocabulary, it's less helpful. But that's how you would do that. I mean, Google is perfectly fine for that too. All right, Piyush, we got it from India. Hi, from Mexico. Says Momo, nice to see you there. Mika, your English is pretty understandable. Well, I hope so. I'm trying to be understandable. It's quite difficult to do for me. Means I cannot agree with you. It's pretty difficult. Wait, are you? It's quite difficult to do for me. Means I cannot agree with you. It's pretty difficult to do for me. Means let me have time to think about it. Arigato. 日本人が聞いてるね。なるほどね。So you're asking like, yeah, so like in Japanese, it's like, これちょっとですね。ちょっと難しいね。It's like this a little bit like, yeah, you can just say this might be, but I mean, both of those would mean the same thing. And in Japanese, like often like that's a nuance of the culture. Not so much the language by itself, because when like a Japanese person is like chotto ne, like they mean no. Or I mean you can kind of get the feeling for that, like you know when they're talking about something, if you're asking permission to do something. And that's why I usually tell people, like I told my friend who came out here, I said it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission in Japan. So don't ask for permission to do something, just do it, and then if it's a problem, say I'm sorry after that. That's what you should do. I mean, don't do anything bad, but you know, it's much easier, like, because in Japan, I was trying to, like, he wanted, you know, asking me lots of questions about like the language and the culture and how it works and stuff, and that was the basic idea. So most people, even if something would be easy to do, people are like, they don't want to do something different, and it can be very very hard to kind of change those ways or get permission to do something new. Yeah, but again, like I don't want to be. We say this is the. Oh, I'm getting too many. Let me clear some space. Clear some space over here to clear some space. So the final word on something. So I don't want to be the final word on any particular word or phrase, because you will hear it, you should hear it from other people as well. So don't just, okay, Drew said this and now I do that. Like you can trust what I'm saying, but you should also get more examples of things. All right, always do that. All right. I guess you guys are speaking with each other. Juan says, I've been watching your videos for about 2 months. Seems like I can understand more, but I still can't speak. Yeah. So again, what we try to do, what I'm doing here in these videos, is really make it easier for you to understand how to learn. And I will also be teaching, some pronunciation or some vocabulary or grammar or something like that. But in general, it's just teaching you how to learn the language. And then you can either do that with me, like in Fluent for Life, or you can just do that yourself and go improve the same way I did. So it's obviously much easier and faster if you do it with me, like that's what we do in Fluent for Life. But typically you're not going to get the native level of understanding because I'm not giving you native level of speech. I'm trying to be understandable in these videos. And often in real life, we are not understandable unless you have practiced and you've learned those different things. So that's what we do in Fluent for Life. So think about these videos as a way to help you learn some things and help you understand more about how the language works. And the reason it's hard to get you fluent with just YouTube videos like this is because you really need lots of different examples and many different native speakers. Okay, so I'm just one guy. I can pretend to do different voices or whatever, but you need to get lots of different examples from different native speakers. Let's see here. Okay. All right, how can I learn English, says Mohammed? Go back and watch this video again. Watch it from the beginning. Rachel says, most of the time I understand what people say in English. They often use very simple sentence structures. When it's my turn, the situation is quite different. I always get stuck. Yeah. So if you know a lot of English, I'll keep this up here. If you know a lot of English, but you still can't speak fluently, it just means you don't feel confident enough about whatever that word or phrase is you want to say. There is some doubt you have that's stopping you. It's the uncertainty you have about the language that stops you from speaking. So if you're worried about grammar or pronunciation, or if you're using the right word, or you can't understand what other people are saying, any doubt, anything like that, it will stop you from communicating. So you just need to get more examples to help you feel very confident about the language. And then you get confident and fluent in individual words and phrases as you learn them. All right, Kiyoshi says, in your opinion, should we focus on getting fluent and confident in one specific situation, then moving to other situations rather than trying to get so in multiple situations in parallel? Well, it just depends on how quickly you can do that and what situations you need for your life. So let's say if I need to do grocery shopping every day, I should probably get fluent in that. And I would do that just by getting lots of examples of that thing. So, and you can think about it like the same way if you learn new things in Japanese. Let's say there's a new, some new company, or there's a new way of doing something, or some new government thing. You will learn that in English at the same time, or you will learn it in Japanese, and you will go through this same process in Japanese. It will probably be faster because you already know a lot of other things, and so the new thing that you're learning in context is probably easier to understand, but you will still go through this process. And if you can learn multiple things at the same time, that's fine. It's just how quickly can you understand that? So like what we do in Fluent for Life lesson sets, we're focusing on a particular grammar point, or usually a couple different things related to a situation. But you also learn lots of vocabulary that you can then use in other situations. So if I'm talking with someone, let's say I learn about, I gave you the example before about to dumb something down. So I could talk about that like teaching, little kids, or I could talk about that like giving an explanation to someone, or someone explains something to me and I say, I didn't understand that, could you dumb it down a bit for me? And so I'm taking something and I'm applying it in different situations, or kind of different contexts, but it's the same basic idea for that meaning of the word. So I could, another example would be if I learn something like, like a phrase for business or something. Or I learn a phrase from sports, like baseball. So like in the game of baseball, you probably know that in Japan, but we've got 4 bases. So you got home plate, And we're talking about like I took a girl out on a date and ooh, I got to first base with the girl. I got to first base. It means, it could mean different things to different people, but usually it's, I got a kiss or something. So, ooh, like how far did you get? How far did you get? Like, or did you get all the way to home? Probably not, but maybe you say, oh, I got to first base. Like I got a kiss from her. So here we're taking a baseball situation, so I'm learning about that, but then I'm applying it in different situations. But it's about the same kind of situation. Does that make sense? So it's more how many puzzle pieces can I fit, and that I'm not overloading my brain. But the point is that if you're learning something and it's important for your life, you should focus on it until you understand how to use that thing properly. Now, Fluent for Life is organized kind of around grammar points and specific topics because it's easier for people to find information that way. So if I want to, I want to learn how to use a particular, modal verbs or like past, whatever that thing is, I can focus on that because grammar is really the foundation of all of that. But you will notice as you learn more things, you can then apply that information in other situations. So don't worry about like a specific rule for how to learn. It's just, can we get more examples of something until I really understand it for whatever that situation is. All right, okay, so your name is Kim Young-ju. Oh, okay, nice to see you there. All right, and you again, your answer is very clear. I will start spying on people. Yes, so especially, now I don't know if you're Japanese or not, but if you are around native speakers, you can just listen to them, or just like this, you can just go online and get lots of people just speaking, and you can listen to them. The speech is all over the place. The point is, do you have it organized well, and can you understand it when people are talking to you? Aran says, always clear. Armando again, you English is awesome. Yeah, I think it's just called Youglish. Youglish. I use it a lot for getting tons of examples and pronunciation of phrases and words. Yeah. Now it says, Konnichiwa, I'm Japanese and from Arizona. I love your video so much. Well, thank you very much. If you know other Japanese or Arizonians, I don't know, how do you say that in Arizona? Arizonians, I guess, maybe. Let them know. Let's see, Jez says, your sound is great, glad to hear it. Tavo says, I understand some people talk to me, but it's hard for me to reply back. Sometimes it's slow for me to reply to them. Yes, so the understanding, like you can see how this works, the fluency development, the conscious or the confidence development, this goes through these stages. And so obviously you're not hearing something, you're not recognizing it all, but then you begin with understanding. And so you hear something, and often people stop here. So they don't continue to learn something and really understand it to get to the fluent level of that. And again, as I showed here earlier, the process can go very quickly if you get good examples. So if I get like a couple of good examples, and this is why I talk about naturally varied review all the time, because what most people do is they will find like one example of a word. It's like, let's say I just use bird as an example. And I just hear the same teacher repeat this over and over and over and over again. I'm not going to learn as much. So I could be spending, let's say I'm spending 10 minutes doing that, or I spend 10 minutes getting a wide range of different uses of bird. So they could be talking about like the bird that flies, or like some people call airplanes. It's like, look at that bird up there, or a helicopter or something. And as I get all these different examples, I feel much more confident about that word, okay? So it's the same amount of time, but one of these is just repeating something. I'm not really improving very much. The other is actually helping me understand that thing better. So I feel confident using it. And the important thing is like both of these, like you can call this practice. Both of these are practicing the word, but this one, you're not actually learning anything new. And remember, the whole goal of practice is to feel confident and certain about the language, okay? So as you feel confident and certain about the language, that's when you speak. All right, I think I got that one. Himmel says, hello from Bangladesh. Daniel says, what kinds of U.S. accent are you speaking? I want to sound like you, clean and simple. Well, I'm speaking kind of a neutral, you just copy my voice if you want to sound like me. But you will, my native way of speaking is a little bit different from this. This is my kind of teaching pronunciation and presentation kind of voice. So it's a little bit easier to understand. I'm speaking more clearly for sure. I'm changing my vocabulary to make sure people understand what I'm saying. I'm kind of dumbing it down a little bit. And I know that can also mean it has kind of a negative meaning as well, but you can often ask that for yourself. Or if you're talking with natives, who was that? Was that Mu or Mika? Somebody was asking before about like asking natives to not do that. You can say, oh, you don't have to dumb it down for me. So if you respond back with like a phrase that you practiced, and that's a very native phrase, like, oh, you don't have to dumb down your speech for me. That might make them feel a little bit embarrassed, but they will get the idea, like, okay, like, you can just be honest with people. And that's a nice thing about native speakers of English rather than Japanese, typically, is you can be kind of honest with people about stuff. Just say, oh, can you please speak normally? I just want to listen to real native English, even if I don't understand everything. But again, if you don't have that, you don't need a person physically there to do it. You just need examples. Don says, when I'm studying those examples of this specific word, but I don't understand the other words that are written in those examples that are already to get help from the mother language and translate it. I mean, you can always get an English to English translation. If you wrote like what you just wrote, that comment that you have there, like you should have enough English ability to get examples of things in an English to English dictionary if you don't understand something. But you should, hopefully, I don't know what examples you're getting, and this is why I try to give simple examples. I'm just like focusing on the vocabulary, but just so you can understand what it means. But if you're doing like Chat GPT, you can ask for like, give me simple examples or with easier vocabulary. You can tailor it that way. All right, let's see. Talking to a songbird. I see, is that the Space Needle there? Oh, is that what that is? Or is that just the alien ship or something? That's interesting. All right, look at that. It looks like we got through everybody. Fantastic. All right, just to give a quick recap of everything here. All right, most people, they get stuck, like they can't improve, or they feel that they're kind of like stuck at this level where they understand but they don't speak fluently. They think this is because they don't get enough practice, and they're correct. So they are correct. It is true that they don't get enough practice, but they think practice comes from them speaking, when practice actually comes from you getting lots of examples from other people speaking, okay? If you just repeat something again and again, it's not going to help you improve because you're not learning anything. It's not helping you understand anything better. You might get to practice your pronunciation a little bit, but that's usually not what's stopping people from speaking. They actually just don't feel confident about what they say. So they're worried about the grammar or pronunciation or something. But if you get lots of different examples, enough to help you feel confident about something that you'll use it correctly, that's where you go from just understanding something up here to ownership, when you really feel confident. So if you want to practice, you don't need a physical native speaker there. You just need to get lots of examples to help you understand something. And remember, it could be just one example. You might hear a word one time and understand it immediately, and then you're fluent in that word. Very easy. But, maybe for lots of people, and this happens with me as well, I might hear something and then I need more examples to really feel confident about that. But that's how it works. I don't need to be with people physically, I just need their input. I need to hear lots, like for my case, I need to hear lots of different Japanese people saying things, and that's when I feel confident using something. All right, and it works the same way in any language for all of us. All right, Kiyoshi says, when a native speaker acquires a new phrase like you're not gonna get away with it, do they do so as a sentence, a collection of certain words, or just like one word? Well, it could be, but I mean, they will also hear, they will probably break that down in, I guess the better way to answer this is children and adults will learn new things differently. So if you hear something as like one complete phrase, or even one sentence, and you don't have a pattern already, then you will remember that as one thing. So that's how children are often learning the language. So they're like, everything to children is new the first time they hear it. So they hear like, something like, you're not gonna. that by itself becomes a phrase that they would remember, and then they can apply that to other things. So if I hear, let's say I'm watching like, I don't know, a movie, let's see, what was your specific phrase? You're not gonna, was that get away with that? Yeah, you're not gonna get away with it. So you're not gonna get away with it or that or whatever, we'll just say that. You're not gonna get away with that. You're not gonna get away with that. And kids are like, well, get away with that. Like they might not quite understand exactly what that means, but they think like a criminal did something badly and the police are trying to get them, or the good guy is trying to stop someone in a movie. And kids will repeat something like that as one thing. You're not gonna get away with that. So they look at this as kind of one unit, but they've probably heard this a lot more already. So like you're not gonna do this, or you're not gonna do well, you're not gonna sleep well tonight, or whatever. So there are lots of things you could put with this. And then you're not gonna get away with that. It just depends on what other phrases you already know. And so what we're doing when we learn new language like that, we learn new vocabulary, we're trying to put it into patterns that we already know. So that way we don't need to remember this whole thing. It's just, we already know this. So we could change this like, ooh, he is gonna get away with that. Ooh, he's gonna get away with that. So I could change this, instead of you're not gonna, it could be you are gonna get away with something. So yes, it just depends on what you already know, and that's why the foundation of something is very important for understanding new things. And then, as you know, like as a native speaker of Japanese, as you learn new things, it becomes much easier to put new things into that. Because often, like the basic structure of that, it's like you're not gonna, and then you will learn maybe some new phrase that you attach into that. Look at Nils. Better late than never. Better late than never. Better late than never. Better late than never. So even if you are late, it's better than not being here at all. Better late than never. Better late than never. My dad used to say, like, he would, people would introduce themselves and they're like, oh, what's your name? He's like, well, you can call me anything you like, but don't call me late for dinner. Don't call me late for dinner. And so that's two kind of uses of the word call there. I just thought of that with this here, with this late example. Better late than never. All right, looks like we're shutting it down here. We'll get these last couple ones. Mika again. Hi, teacher. What time is it there? Here is 11:29 in Tokyo. It is 11, well, it's the same time. Even Nagasaki ni iru kara ne. I was just in Tokyo yesterday, actually. I was in Shinjuku. I was at like an underground Starbucks. Thank you very much. See you again. LOL. All right. Yeah, it's a pleasure. Come again. Modest says from Chad. Look at that, in Africa. Am fluent self-taught English speaker. Would love to know how to really practice the U.S. accent in my French-speaking country. Look, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter where you are. You just get lots of different examples. So if you want to sound like a native English speaker from the United States, watch content on that from YouTube or wherever, and you will hear how native English speakers are sounding, from the United States or wherever it is you want to sound. But that's how you do it. All right, George Chan, look at that again, starting the first comment and the last comment over there. Nice to see you again. But thank you all. If you'd like to learn more about how to do this, again, getting all the examples is the thing you really need to get yourself fluent. So either you can do this by yourself, which is fine. It's just, if you don't know how to do that, it can be troubling, just like I had to go through that same process of getting fluent in Japanese because I didn't have a teacher. I still don't have a teacher, but I just get my examples from lots of different people. So kind of the world becomes your teacher, but if you'd like help doing that because you want to get fluent as quickly as possible, you can click on the link in the description below this video. And I'll see you in the next video.